And
From your perspective, what did I do wrong?
I don't think anything. I mean, this is the thing is like I exist, and like
That's. I mean, you're resilient. You would have survived anything practically.
kids are resilient, and I don't know. I feel like I would say at the kind of crucial moments, you made all the right choices, right? So there's these kind of crucial parenting moments.
There you have it. Let's stop. I don't. I've got everything.
Yeah,
I need.
yeah.
We're done with this one.
Well, so at like the crucial parenting moments of my life, right? Like one, you and mom did find a way to be financially comfortable, right? Which I think is important as far as like creating like a safe place to raise kids. Though you guys did have like marital issues, you guys did still, find some way to work through them positively. Dave and I had both like a safe place to grow up, also a spiritual education. So I would say our spiritual education was supported. I became, we both kind of found by faith in our own ways, and and like over the years, like we had very rich like spiritual religious education, had a strong moral education. That's kind of the most important things as a parent. Strong practical education and like skills, and then from, like in professional stuff, like you provided like a good example of working hard, being very diligent at work. Also, the only part that I felt like I had to improve on as a parent myself was really, just like being available time-wise, which for our daughter. That was kind of the only thing, if I'm like kind of figure skate judging, right? Like for, if we're like providing like an aesthetic, from the outside looking in kind of judgment of the activities, I would say the only thing that I would probably add was, if you could have integrated me into your work. Obviously you did to some levels. You brought me to work while I was working on school projects and stuff like that a couple of times. And I felt like that part was so grounding for me. That's something that I definitely want to bring to our kid, right? Like our daughter, and any other kids we have. Like I think that like as a parent, that's probably one of the most valuable things that you did.
This was Centerpoint?
Yeah, when you brought me into work. I mean, I assume it was Centerpoint. It might have been Reliant at the time.
Well, it could have been. Oh no, it might have been Houston Industries or something like that.
Yeah, but that was looking back, like that probably doesn't even register on the things that you did as a parent, but that was wildly informative for me.
Wow.
I know that there's so many things like that with our daughter that
I remember showing him where the coffee bar was.
Oh yeah.
Not that I expected him to have some coffee, but I wanted him to go get me some, but.
Well, this is actually a good story to go into. So like this would have been like middle school for me, and I would be working on these school projects. Like I think I was working on a story about, or like a, one of those trifold kind of history fair projects on the Norman invasion of England. And so there were a couple of these kind of stories, like the Norman invasion of England, the Vietnam War.
Ho Chi Minh.
So I did a biography on Ho Chi Minh. And what else? I mean, those were kind of really formative.
I always wanted to do the time of 3 popes.
I know.
But no, we're going to do the Norman invasion.
But this is a good example, like of your ability to, as a parent, to really take just some banal, like history fair project and say, you should do the time of 3 popes. So I have to look up who were the time of, when was this? And like how Dave ended up doing, the Indian tribe that he got was the one that practiced second harvest because they were so poor. And definitely gave a very different experience of what Native American life looked like compared to something like the Comanche or the Kickapoo or something.
Those focusing on the gathering as opposed to the hunting part,
yeah.
Life was tough.
So it was we each had, I would say that was probably one of the most maybe unexpected wins that you could chalk up as a parent, was just those, like kind of bringing in that professional exposure, like to me as a preteen.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Or almost tweener.
Tweener. Yeah. So that, I think that was definitely a big one for me. I think that, when I did have kind of troubles as a teenager, I went into that with this kind of expectation of, like, I was, it didn't like I wasn't trying to, as a teenager, I was trying to be as lazy as possible, but I always had this kind of vision that I was going to figure this out on the other side, right? And so I think that, when I did show up, kind of get past that and show up, I guess the other experience was I showed up at college having already worked in a research lab, right? So I had this kind of experience.
And that's because you went to the high school for the engineering professions.
Yeah, so I think that was a big one. Like you and Mom supporting me going to the high school for engineering professions, and then the Welch Summer Scholars Program, going with you to work a couple times. Like I showed up at college not just like with academic experience, but just like genuine like work ethic. Also working at Quiznos for a summer was also really helpful. And then my second summer or my first summer of college, I worked at Gamma Biologics in a lab.
Dude, I have to intrude here for a second. So John was working at Gamma Biologics. It was between his freshman and sophomore year. And he would get on his bike and ride down. It was nearby where we lived. So he'd ride there. And then we'd pick him up about 9 o'clock, him and his bike, so he didn't have to pedal home. Because he'd work about a 12-hour, 13-hour day. And at the same time, his brother borrowed my lawnmower and edger and was going around edging and mowing yards. And he would leave about sunrise with a bottle of water on a lanyard over his shoulder, the edger up here, pushing the lawnmower. And we'd see him at the end of the day. And that summer, I watched both of my sons work their...
You can say whatever you want. I'm going to bleep it.
Yeah. Work really, really hard. David would come back just soaked in sweat. John would come back so tired, a can of soup, and right in bed.
Yeah, that was a tough summer, but it was good. I mean, he is exaggerating a little bit. I think I only worked over 12 hours. I think I did 14 hours one day. But we had, so it was time and a half over 8. So it was time and a half over 40. I was working logistics, packing boxes. And yeah, I mean, I would do regularly like 60 to 80 hours a week. I think I only clocked over 80 maybe 1 or 2 weeks during the summer. I think I might have done 82 hours in a week, the most.
Okay.
But yeah, but it was a good summer. Made some money, bought my first computer. And yeah, it was definitely, I think that was very important for me to kind of have that kind of work experience, because I knew, when I showed up at stuff like graduate school and I was working 7 days a week, 80 plus hours, it was, it wasn't the first time I'd worked 80 hours in a week, right? And I knew that I just needed to do whatever needed to get done.
Yeah.
But it's not like you were, thinking through this as a parent myself now, like, it's not like you were actively parenting 18-year-old John for this job. Like, I tried to get a job, like I wanted to work in a lab before I was 18, but I legally couldn't. So this was the first kind of like, it wasn't even like in the lab in the blood bank side. I wanted to work in the manufacturing side. And so this is a company, they would manufacture blood products for blood diagnostic products. I was a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson. They do not exist anymore. And so, I wanted to work in the manufacturing department, but they needed me to pack boxes. And so probably with like the overtime, I probably made more than the folks with bachelors in the manufacturing side. Because I think it was like 12 an hour or something like that. And with time and a half, it was, and double time over 12 hours in a day and double time over 80 hours in a week. You could definitely clock some money. And as long as you didn't get on the bus to go to the casino with everybody else, you could keep it at the end of the summer.
And at the end of the summer, both of my sons had more money in the bank than I did.
Yeah, this was after Y2K, so all that money was spent.
Oh no, this one was it Y2K?
This would have been 2003.
Okay, yeah, and the Y2K, as John may or may not remember, in the run up to Y2K, I was working 100-hour weeks fairly regularly. What can I tell you? And of course, my wife missed me and was moderately upset about that, but I couldn't get out. I had to work.
Yeah. It's so interesting thinking about all this stuff, the way that I've kind of, the way that Leanne and I consult on this stuff and kind of work on that is very different. And it's very helpful to kind of have that understanding of what you went through, because it helps me kind of ground and make better decisions. Maybe not better, different decisions.
Better.
Okay.
Trust me, in retrospect, anything I could have done, well, other than not doing the work, anything would have been better.
Well, yeah, but like, trying to think through like being the person doing bedtime with Val, or, consulting with Leanne more about like, okay, should we make this decision or that decision? Like how much time should I be working? Is this the right use of time? How can I help you? How can you help me? How can we do this together?
Yeah.
I think communication is probably the biggest thing that I've learned, and also priorities, right? Like understanding that there are seasons that you have to work, but you can't. There's a difference between how you run a sprint and a marathon.
Right. And Y2K was just, I don't know if it was a marathon or.
I think it was a sprint. I think if you're clocking 100 hours a week, it's a sprint.
It seemed like a bear.
Yeah.
But it needed to be done,
mm-hmm.
because the company needed it.
Yeah.
And because of the work I did there, the next year they hired me as an employee, and paid me more money than I deserved for years.
Yeah, another 10 years, 15 years?
I worked 17 years as an employee there.
Yeah.
And that was predicated on the 100-hour week Y2K, because I didn't change what I did for the company, and it was good. They were happy with it.
Yeah.
And when they decided that I'd worked with her enough, they didn't let me retire. They laid me off, but they also gave me a golden parachute.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And my wife still drives the truck that we purchased with that money.
It's great. I mean, it's great. I've seen the truck. It's a great truck.
It's a great truck. It's a little blue truck.
Little blue truck. It's a truck that fits like people that are north of 6'3" quite comfortably.
Let's put it this way: it's a little blue truck if you're 6 feet 3 inches tall.
Yeah.
It's very comfortable for her. My wife loves it.
That's great.